Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Baptist Boy 33. First and foremost, I want to thank all of those who sent me well wishes and prayers and things of that nature in the month of March. That's how long it's been since I've actually posted a video. I've been, I went through my surgery in March. For those who know, or those who don't, I recently had a septo and rhinoplasty, so debut the new nose. But anyway, and I've been very busy with the ministry and paying the bills and doing what I have to do. That's what happens when you live alone and you're here in Brooklyn, New York, and things of that nature. Anyhow, this is a video in response to a guy by the name of Justinj1232, I believe it is, and his video was entitled DL Church Queens Part 2. Now, I will state this before I go any further. This is not my way of trying to quote-unquote come for him, start any internet beef, anything of that sort. This is merely me exercising my invitation to have a conversation with him. And so let's get into it. I will say that when I read that title, it just okay, it was reductive, okay, to say the very least. Now, there are a few things that I do concur with, in no particular order. Men stepping outside of their marriage to sleep with anyone. Men hating openly gay men. I don't believe anyone should be hated on. The other thing that he touched on is how that one doesn't wake up and just decide to be gay. Another thing that I can relate to is when he talks about praying the gay away or fasting the gay away. Now, let's start with the men sleeping outside of their marriage. I don't condone it. I don't promote it. Okay? However, I have always been a person that's fair. I look at both avenues. So, with that being said, I do take that marriage thing very seriously. I do believe that if you go before the house of the Lord and you say, for better or for worse, to death do us part, or whatever it is that they say, that is something that's supposed to be taken serious. You have vowed before the Lord, angels, and assembly. So I do believe that those things should be taken seriously. However, now here's where I see both aspects. When you are an African American male, from the time you're old enough to know yes and no, right and wrong, you have been conditioned to believe that if you are with anyone of the same sex, it totally separates you from the love of God. You've been conditioned to believe that it totally emasculates you. Now, nothing could be further from the truth. Okay? Here's where it gets sticky about the going outside of the marriage. In your video, you state that there are a lot of quote-unquote church queens, and I cringe each time I have to use that reference, that there are a lot of DL church queens that are inside the service and they're reading their Bible and they're hallelujahing and all of these things, but the moment that they leave the building, they're on things like Jacked and I don't know, you said something like, I think it's called Vine, I don't know. Anyway, and that they're on these sites looking for dick. Well, that might be true for some, but that's not necessarily the case for all. And that's where it came across as very judgmental. It came across as if you were condemning. It came across very blanketed. Here's where I see there are a lot of men that, because they were conditioned, especially in the African American community, for the two reasons that I previously stated, they go ahead and they get married because they've never had anyone tell them that, okay, well, what you were told isn't true, or they've never really believed that they had the opportunity to be free and be themselves. Now, what happens is they go off and they get married, and they try to suppress these feelings because they are so afraid that they're going to fall into this lake of fire and things of that nature. And so they suppress these feelings and they go on to have children. And then what happens is those four walls at some point surround them, and time becomes their own worst enemy. And so what happens is, with the invention of Jacked and, those things like A for A and Vine and whatnot and so have you, they get on these sites. And when they get on these sites, they're not necessarily looking for dick. Not everyone is looking for dick. There are some guys who have the thought of being with another dude, but because of their fear and because of what they've been conditioned to believe, that is their only avenue to speak to guys who are actively living the quote unquote lifestyle. And so for them, that's their way of having some kind of exchange. Now, that's not necessarily to say that it won't lead into something further, but for the most part, those sites are individualized, if you will. I believe those sites, yes, are intended for what the majority have made it out to be, but I do believe that when you get on those sites, you make it as to what it is you'd have it to be. One thing I do agree with is that, yes, you just do not wake up and decide that you're going to be gay. That just does not happen. It does not happen. You cannot pray that stuff away. Nobody can say a couple of words in tongues and then you're no longer liking God. No, that doesn't work. Okay? But what I will suggest is that when you put topics like this on your page, and you're allowed to put whatever you want on your page, clearly, you need to weigh out all the variables. Okay. Another thing, as far as the church folk hating on the openly gay guys, I'm not saying that hasn't happened. I don't know what your experience has been, but what I would like for you to know, that those aren't church folk. Those are people who just merely step into a building. Now, personally, me, I will not hang out with a guy who is flaring about, and he is voguing down the street, and he has a goatee and Caesar cut and Timberland boots on, and he's talking about Miss Thing and girlfriend. And listen, that's all well and good if that's who they are. If if you're just queenie, if that's what you're calling it, or I like to say blatantly flamboyant, if that is who you are, that is totally fine. I have no problem with that. I just won't hang with you. For me, I just won't do it. I like what I like. I like men, and I like men that act accordingly. I can assure you that if I want a woman, it's not a problem, okay? But if I'm going to kick it with a dude, whether it be platonic or interpersonal, I want that person to govern themselves accordingly. Now, I don't hate on anyone, and I don't believe anyone who's DL is hating on those who are just out there. No, but then you also implied that those who are in church and very active, because we aren't out there and as open as one would like for us to have been, or how you feel we should be, then that doesn't constitute us being labeled queens. I love the Lord with all of my heart, and there isn't a person in the world that can tell me anything different. My God isn't a God that operates by being exclusionary. Like that just isn't, that's not the God I serve. The God I serve is a God of inclusion. Okay? But I don't necessarily feel like I have to walk around with a banner on my forehead stating that this is what I do in my bedroom. Clearly, that's my business. And I think that there are several, I don't think, no, I know that there are several men who entertain this. I don't even know that I can call it a lifestyle, but whatever. We'll just use the word lifestyle for right now. I don't think that because they are private, we should be called DL queens. I just don't think that's a fair title to give. I think that it came off as very derisive and bitter and one-sided. But I am very thankful that you offered further dialogue, as I'm totally open for that. You know, some folks chose to use their thumbs and type in their commentary. I had no problem coming face to face. In fact, I would definitely be okay with having a face-to-face, sit-down on-camera interview with you, and we can have conversation just about anything. I may not necessarily agree with your viewpoints, and that's okay, because that's where we can agree to disagree. And so I implore you to do that. You can contact me via my inbox on YouTube. Screen name is BaptistBoy33, or you can email me decolby33@gmail.com, DECOLBY33@gmail.com. Again, I thank you for your time and your consideration, and I will have you to know this: not all churches turn up their nose to gay men. I implore that you go where you're celebrated and not tolerated. God bless you. Peace.